massive redheads. We join Neil hunting in New Zealand as he discovers there's a market for big is best. And there's money to be made in this vast landscape.
I feel almost like a kid today. It's almost like a dream come true. So I'm quite excited with the whole thing.
Risky riders, forget the Grand National. For this hunt horse race, you need the biggest cojones in the country. Plus, fancy filming like a pro, we launched the Fieldsports Channel workshops with David Wright. Yes, David Wright. We've got news, we've got hunting YouTube. Welcome to Fieldsports Britain. If deer manager Niall Rowantree were in government, and some say he should be, his trip to New Zealand would be a special ministerial envoy, fact-finding mission. That's because he's looking for inspiration, answers, and ideas on how to maximise the natural resource inhabiting the landscape around him back home in Scotland, the red deer. Hunting, venison, tourism, trophies all pay their way and inject money into remote rural areas. In New Zealand, it's the same but different. Some ideas are modern and exciting. Others make Neil scratch his head. For example, he's been told there is no market for hunting red hinds or fallow does. In Ardnamurchan, that's part of his bread and butter.
What I've learned in a few days, and we've heard and had one or two interesting discussions, that there are technically elements of deer management here that they are undoubtedly leading the world on. And their genetics and their deer farming are spectacular. And then we found a backdrop here today where there really is, in this area, we're in a huge fallow deer population. If it was at home, if it was in the UK, it would present huge stalking opportunities, it would present huge meat marketing opportunities. But for the marketplace that they're in, we were talking to them saying, do you get groups of guys coming here wanting to stalk fallow does? And the simple answer we got surprised us both, which was no. So when they do it here, the only way they can do it is to do it as an operation of scale. And we saw earlier today them shooting quite a lot of deer and shipping them away quickly to be processed. And to my mind, and I mean I'm not a Kiwi and I could be corrected for it, it seems that there's similar issues to we have at home where there's legislation and there's opinion, and it doesn't necessarily marry with practically using natural resources.
The cultural differences may be in part due to New Zealand's relatively young and challenging relationship with deer. It wasn't that long ago they were an environmental disaster. But instead of mass destruction, some creative thinking gave birth to a global industry. Pest infestation turned into profit. This morning, our host, Duncan Fraser from Venator Cardrona Safaris, is going to show Neil some of his better bred pests. They have become part of the family silver and gold and platinum.
The Scottish introductions took us to a certain level, and then what really kicked us to a next level was, some of these more multi-pointed genes that come out of the English parks, out of Warren, Woburn, Furslin. And then kind of the mixing and blending of all these different genetic strains from Eastern Europe, from Yugoslavia, from Austria, from Romania, crossed with the English deer. It was kind of like taking the best of all these different worlds and mixing them in, making a milkshake and coming out with the end result.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been the way I've believed it. I mean, red deer in the UK and in the Scottish Highlands are probably at the northern extremity of their range as a species. Yeah. So it's nutrition and shelter that's really reduced their ability to demonstrate their genetic ability.
Well, it's the same thing, we talked about a lot when we come out to the west coast where you are and look at the deer, and they're a lot smaller in the body than what we're used to. But like you said, that's an environment that's driven that, because for a smaller body it takes less food, it's less this heat to keep them warm during the winter. There's a whole lot of reason that's driven them to be a smaller bodied animal. If they were a big Eastern European deer in that environment, they wouldn't last 5 seconds.
Yeah. So Duncan, for a comparison here, we're just holding two different heads up, one behind the other, so people can get an idea of what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Talk us through this guy a little bit.
So this is probably more traditional of some of our Warren Park genetics, but probably kind of looks very similar to some of the East Bloc kind of deer, some Hungary, probably more Hungary than Romania, but some of those sort of countries where you'll get kind of wide, sweeping antlers, long, clean crowns, not necessarily huge mass, but just really, really pretty stags.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bigger example than I've ever seen of them, but I have seen this type of genetics in parks in the UK, so I'm right in seeing similarity there.
Yeah, definitely.
And he is distinctly different to the guy in front of him.
Very different. Yeah, you can see this one, he's got a lot more mass, not as long in the main beam, and more cuppy in the crown. Not quite as open style as what this head is. So, definitely different genetics, different traits at different parks.
Neil couldn't come all this way without hunting his own New Zealand red stag. The chances are it will be the biggest he has ever shot. We drive to a private estate, not public land, and it's very beautiful.
Well, it's been something I've always wanted to do in a country that has fascinated me. The whole story of red deer and how they came to New Zealand. And I feel almost like a kid today. It's almost like a dream come true. So I'm quite excited with the whole thing.
Do you find it odd being guided, or is that something you're used to? I
think these days I wouldn't say I'm used to it, but it's interesting. Different folks, different strokes, And I think as you get older, you get wiser to the fact that people can always teach you something. And it's their landscape, and the Kiwis know their way around this land. So no, I'm probably better off being with them than being on my own. So no, I'm quite relaxed.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. And I mean the landscape, you've seen it yourself. The landscape's incredible.
Joining our hunting is Neil's Belgian friend Laurent Huart. Laurent runs Magic Safari Lodges, a wonderful resource for hunting around the world. And he works closely with the likes of West Highland Hunting and Venator Cardrona Safaris.
And what I always try to do is to put different outfitters together so that they start knowing each other. They share by the same type of clients, and having an outfitter recommend another place anywhere around the world, coming from a professional, makes it's more credible than just picking up a brochure at a show or anything else, I would say. So it's important. But being here and discovering, I would say, an operation like this gives it, for me anyway, even more credit, because I can talk about it. People often ask me about these different lodges. Unfortunately, I can't answer of all of them, but when I can, it makes a huge difference because you have experienced it. It's really great, I would say.
Back to the hunt, and the stag they have in mind for him has evaded the crosshairs for 2 seasons. Marcus thinks it will be a challenge, even for Neil. The terrain is not unlike home turf, which is why he's decided to wear his usual nomad clothing.
The thing that appeals to me about nomad clothing is, particularly in a Highland setting, and today we're not in a Highland setting, it has a traditional look, which means for both me and my guys, it looks very traditional to what Highland gamekeepers and deer stalkers wore. I think importantly, and even here in New Zealand, it's borne itself out, that it's effective camouflage. And I think more importantly than any of these things for us is that our guys are guiding for over 30 weeks a year. And it's hard to say on a sunny day like this, but very often we're out in atrocious weather conditions. And the fact that you've got a garment that's warm, it's comfortable, you can move around in it easily, and it keeps you dry, makes a huge difference.
After a couple of hours, we find our boy. He is huge, and Neil has to try and compose himself on some slippery and steep terrain.
You ready? I saw Marcus clock him, and then I clocked him, and then he turned and just started drifting down the brae. And I thought when he stood in that gap there, that was his one and only look at you before he buggered off. That is, we'll go and have a good look at the moment, but yeah, that's the biggest stag I've shot. I've travelled halfway around the world to do it, but it's just a hell of an experience. I'm almost emotional, David.
Oh, well done, sir.
Thank you very much, Marcus.
Good job, Neil. A bit fast and furious, but he's done.
Look at me, look at that.
Well done, Neil.
Wow,
Beautiful results.
what an incredible stag. It's a big stag. It's going to be interesting watching David drag that out of there, isn't it? Beautiful. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, I'm getting it. It's fascinating. Yeah. I mean, the New Zealanders, there's a lot of people who have ideas, and we've talked about it earlier today, that deer in New Zealand, that they inject them with hormones and do all sorts of odd things to them. But the vegetation you've looked at today gives you an idea of how good the grazing is. And Scottish deer that were brought here in the 1870s, you know, within a couple of generations, they trebled in size. And what the New Zealanders have done, and where we are here at Cardrona, they've taken understanding and applying deer genetics to a level far ahead of anything we've done in the UK. And the stag that you're looking at over my shoulder, by what they've managed to breed and deliver through selective breeding, that's a small one.
He wasn't going far.
When we look at the shot there Marcus, I mean, it's, to my mind, it's in a fairly good spot. I was surprised that he took it and moved it as well, as strongly. And obviously these big solid stags, they can take a fair bit of
They're a big problem, a couple of 100 kilograms, but you know, you hit him perfect right on behind the shoulder. You'd only gone 10 or 15 yards, and that was it. We just couldn't see where he was lying in amongst this thick cover from where we were.
I want to carry the stag's head than the whole stag, that's for sure. There's no ticks on the either, is there? No, that's fine.
Although this animal will enter the food chain, albeit via a helicopter extraction, most hunters come here for the head, however unfashionable that may be in some quarters.
It's all right when your guide tells you it's only a couple of 100 yards and it's about half a mile. Glad to put the damn thing down now.
Trophy hunting is alive, well and lucrative, so should we be worried? No. What is a trophy anyway? Some trophies are free but have great meaning. A first rabbit, a beautiful fox, a photo of you and your first pheasant. It's a trophy, something like a memento or a souvenir. Others in this world are not free. The important thing is that the New Zealanders are utilising a natural resource to the max. Neil understands about being at the sharp end of making a natural resource pay its way, and given the current climate, our special envoy has to be as creative as possible to make sure his deer pay. Their future depends on it. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, the Frasers, and thank you to Laurent Roy of Magic Safari Lodges for making that film happen. Now from Magic Lodges to, well, I'm going to pick him up later so I can say it, One Trick Ponies. It's David on the Fieldsports Channel News Stump.
This is Fieldsports Channel News. An auntie has had his drone shot out of the sky. Tired of being harassed by saboteurs, an unidentified man put 3 shots into a Kent Hunt saboteur's drone, filming the Ashford Valley Tickham Hunt. The Sabs claimed it caused £500 worth of damage. Sabs in France claimed that a stag hunter shot at them, although the police can find no evidence, even on their video. The clip, filmed in Castelnau-de-Montmiral in southern France, shows activists trying to put themselves between a stag and a pack of hounds. At one point, gunshots can be heard in the footage before one of the activists shouts, "He is firing at us with a rifle." A man with a gun shouts that the antis are hitting his hounds and "I'm just protecting my hounds." Unseasonable warm weather is causing wildfires on British moorland. Fire crews extinguished a huge blaze on moorland in West Yorkshire, on land believed to be owned by the National Trust, and land at Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh caught fire. Gamekeepers say that controlled mute burning could have prevented them. Are antis trying to get pro-shooting Facebook groups taken down by posting gun ads in the middle of the night? Facebook closed the British-based group Wood Pigeon Shooting, which had 30,000 members, for what it describes as violence. Admins of shooting groups across Facebook say they're unable to stop people posting adverts for guns, which go against Facebook's terms of service. They increasingly suspect animal rights activists of posting gun ads in the small hours of the morning and then immediately reporting those ads. Wood pigeon shooting has reopened and is appealing the closure of the first group. Politicians in Canberra, Australia are planning to ban working gun dogs. A new law could bring in penalties of up to 48,000 Australian dollars or 3 years in jail for people who take part in violent animal activity, which includes using an animal to hunt or catch another animal, criminalising local Gun Dog Society president Megan O'Shaughnessy and her flat-coated retriever Blaze, pictured here. African countries are increasingly turning to big game hunting as a conservation measure. Botswana is overrun by 130,000 elephants, and ministers are recommending lifting the 4-year hunting ban and even putting in an elephant meat canning plant for pet food. Meanwhile, Kenya has introduced the death penalty for poaching. A woman has been banned from the dating app Tinder for posting a picture of herself with a deer. Tinder deleted the account of the justifiably proud American hunter, identified only as Nicole, after she posted a picture of herself with a whitetail she'd shot. And finally, here's a gun dog with skills. The Hunters Club of Greece posted on Facebook what may be the world's first arboreal gun dog. But it works. You're now up to date with Fieldsports Channel News. Stuck in the stories, fishing for facts.
Thank you, David. Now, staying with Mr. Wright, we were inspired by the many people who grabbed him at the British Shooting Show and asked him about the tips and techniques that he uses to deliver beautiful films like the one you just watched about New Zealand. And we've decided to make him available for filming workshops. Maybe you are somebody who just enjoys filming. Maybe YouTube is part of your work and you want to achieve the hundreds of thousands of subscribers that we have. Well, this could be £200 very well spent. The workshops take place one day at a time. There's 2 of them at the beginning of April at Paul Childerley's Shooting Lodge in Bedfordshire, which is nice and central. If you want to find out more, go to fchannel/workshops. Needless to say, David asked me if I'd be interested. Ask you, the cheek of it, as you will find out when you watch this beautifully crafted film, What I Made. Bad news for the down-dunning, time-serving health and safety nicks for the country that brought you cheese rolling the Cresta Run and walking slowly towards the enemy has come up with another semi-suicidal sport, and it has the innocent-sounding name of the Golden Button. It's a horse race organised by the Ledbury Hunt, inspired by the old idea of the steeplechase, where you race from church steeple to church steeple, taking on any obstacle in your path. It attracts crowds of hundreds in a field of more than 60 starters. The Grand National only has 40. Organiser and Ledbury Master of Foxhounds David Redvers is clearly nervous.
Into the valley of death they go.
There is something kind of Charge the Light Brigade about this, isn't there? It's probably the last place you could actually do that. You know, you sort of see the omdurman charge, isn't it?
And it's amazing how it's captured the imagination because of it. I mean, you know, there's obviously a fair amount of risk involved. Last year, no riders or runners were hurt, thank God. No horses came back with any injuries at all, so we were very fortunate. The ground is incredible. You wouldn't get ground better than this on any race course in England. So from that perspective, there is an element of risk because it's slightly the unknown. You don't know what the other riders are. You can't read a form guide. I know there are some absolutely world-class jockeys amongst some total amateurs. So how many other opportunities do you get to test your wits against Gary Carroll and the like. You know, you've got some, and Yvonne Goss, who won it last year, who's probably the finest horseman in the country at the moment.
Here's a keen follower of the Ledbury weighing in.
I've done one point to point and I was too heavy. Yeah, and I rode my hunt around Badbury Rings.
What's the difference between this and the point to point?
Oh, this is carnage. Yeah, no, this is fantastic. No, this is the ultimate. I mean, these are the original point to point. So what I like about it generally is you can pick your own line.
It is. I mean, the ground is spot on. It's all old turf. There's no sea. It's all lovely ground like this. It is. I mean, it's near enough 4 miles of flat out jumping, all sorts of things.
As well as the horse race, there's a running race straight afterwards over the same course, and some people take part in both. Here's local point-to-point jockey Ed Bailey.
It wasn't too bad, to be honest. It was fine. I had a good ride round, so I had plenty of energy for the running race. But yeah, I just did finish the ride and thought I'll have a go. So no, it was good fun.
The Irish love it. Around the lorries, half the voices and all the noisy ones are Irish.
The Irish up tip! Woo!
I got a chance ride. The horse I'm riding was in the Melton last week, and the girl fell. A friend of mine, an English girl, was riding him, and she broke her hand. So I only got called in at last minute to ride him. So I sat on him Thursday for the first time, and we're going to war today. There's 20 something Irish in it. Sure, it's the challenge.
I mean, it's
we
like
haven't anything like it in Ireland, like so.
And there's a whole weekend of it, isn't there?
Yeah, we're going to hunt Sunday again, if we're all still alive.
Where are you going to hunt on Sunday?
There's a bloodhound pack, a farmer's bloodhound pack, I think. It's about an hour from here.
And you got the hunt ball tonight?
We probably will. If we're touch wood, if we're all still alive, horse is alive and we're still alive, and the stock saves me breaking my neck.
I was talking to an Irish couple earlier who said every time they've been hunting in Ireland since Christmas, there have been people disappearing off and trying to find a hedge to jump just to get their horse ready for the Golden Button. So yes, there's a massive take-up from Ireland, much bigger than we could ever have imagined, really.
You can compare horses to cars. Flat racing horses are the Formula One speed machines. National hunt horses are more like World Rally Championship. The horse you need for the Golden Button is like something out of Mad Max. And then there's Tato. What can you say about Tato? Well, he's ambitious.
Yeah, he's in with a show. We're not here to compete, we're here to take over.
It's an Irish proving
That's
thing,
it,
isn't
we're here. You got to watch out for the little ones. They're the ones with the big punch, you know.
So tell me about this horse.
This horse is he's half cob, and his other half is Arabian.
Right. So he's got speed.
Yeah, he's got the stamina. He doesn't realise that he's only a little small horse. He thinks that he's a big horse that should be out there with all the thoroughbreds, and
so he's a bit like Napoleon. You know?
Yeah, he's opinionated, and yeah, he's like Napoleon. He's here to do his thing, and probably if I stay with him and don't do anything stupid, I think I'll be there to finish or thereabouts.
I'm here because Nikki Sadler, who works for Fieldsports Channel, follows the Ledbury. She talks me through the parade paddock.
I'd be sick, I think, if I was with this lot. They must be so nervous. But you look at, and especially some of these guys, they look so chilled out.
Nikki spots Ray and Tato, and they clearly have no truck with this walking around in circles thing.
You're getting the guy on that little pony.
Yes.
He's just stood in the middle chillies. I'm not walking around.
No,
why? I'm just going to stand here and chill out. It's amazing. There are some quite small horses here. But, you know, small horse, big heart. I think it's fantastic. Really great. But then there are some proper racing snakes, and they look like there's some really great hunters too. But yeah. I would imagine there'll only be, 20 people max that are in it to win it.
Yeah. The horses make their way to the start, so let's settle back and watch the race unfold.
All right, come on! Yeah! Up, back down! Woohoo!
Fantastic. It is better than sex.
No, it's huge. It was huge. There was loose horses, carnage everywhere. No, it's brilliant.
He's just a machine. He just likes being in front and he just jumps. He's just an absolute babe. He really is. No, thank you very much.
Jockey, this is something else. Can't you, mate? Christ.
I look after him, but I do like to win.
And that last was the incredible Yvonne Goss, winner, second year running. So, what happened to Tato?
Some took me out of it. Absolutely wiped me out of it.
English or Irish?
English.
Ah, bad luck, lads. There's always next year, and the good news is that no horse was injured, and the air ambulance came out only once to take a jockey with a broken ankle to Gloucestershire Royal Hospital, so that's a result. And can I say thanks to my filming team of Charlie Redvers and Stuart Dubois, both of them who have their own YouTube channels, who put cameras on the fences and captured that beautiful drone footage. For more about the Ledbury Hunt, go to ledburyhunt.com. They are a tough bunch of lunatics. Thank you to all the runners and riders who clearly have a screw loose, and of course to the air ambulance, which I'm glad to say doesn't. Now, last week we carried a piece about Tim Pilbeam's living with Lyme disease, and we were stunned by the number of people who wrote in saying they had the same thing, well-wishers and people offering cures. So here's a little roundup of what people are saying. There is a lot from viewers about how devastating Lyme disease can be to people's lives. Reese Wilkinson writes that a friend of his has Lyme and has gone blind. For 5 years his doctor told him it was depression. Emma Rowley says she was bitten by a tick as a child and she suffers Tim's symptoms. She's certain she has Lyme, though the doctors say it's fibromyalgia and will not test her for Lyme. Chiamedos R and his or her sister are convinced they both have Lyme. We live next to Thetford Forest and always had a bullseye on the go. Many people wrote with cures. A viewer in Edinburgh says he was diagnosed quite quickly at the Western General Infectious Diseases Clinic in 2010. After 2 years on antibiotics, he says he's somewhat clear, though he cannot digest barley, wheat or dairy, so he has to be careful what he eats. He writes, every few weeks I go down with all the joint aches, woolly head and just get irritated. Actually seeing others putting this into the media really helps. Franz Schmidt from Switzerland was bitten a year ago. First Lyme disease test showed positive, he took antibiotics and the second test showed negative. I hope it stays like that, he says. A viewer called Hairy1 recommends the YouTube channel Truly Heal, which deals with Lyme. I put a link to that top right. After 3.5 years of antibiotic therapy, Sarah Setter Kennels turned to alternative therapies. She found wellness with UBI, hypothermia and ozone therapy. She says the ozone therapy cured her. Some people wrote with links to people or organisations who could help. Battlemorph says that people who suffer from Lyme disease should check out the work of Wim Hof. Dave Brewer, a viewer in Canada, points us to Rosanna Magnotta, a Canadian who lost her sportsman husband a number of years ago to undiagnosed Lyme. He died because it took so long to diagnose his illness that by the time they did, treatments were no longer effective. To help with the fight to get proper diagnosis and treatments, she set up the foundation in his name as a memorial, gmagnottafoundation.com. Dave knows the foundation well from the clay shooting fraternity at his home club in Ontario. This is a film about the G. Magnotta Research Lab, which the foundation funds. And it's not just Lyme. Ken Payne in Australia points us to a tick problem that's devastating for meat eaters and that's been in the Australian press. Mammalian meat allergy, or MMA, is an allergy to meat and sometimes also to other animal products such as dairy and gelatin, caused by being sensitised earlier by tick bites. Australia has the highest prevalence of MMA in the world. Well, thanks very much for getting in touch. Now, next up, it is Hunting YouTube. YouTube, which aims to show the best hunting and shooting videos that YouTube has to offer. The much-liked Pedro Ampuero is hunting chamois in the Austrian Alps with Julian Wengenmeyer from Sauer Rifles, plus he visits Swarovski. It's a clean miss with the first shot, but he gets it with the second. Jonas Tillmans of Auf der Persch is on German-driven hunts in this film in Hessen and in Siegerland. He sees plenty of game and shoots a non-leading roe doe in each. Kayak Bryn's pal Trigger has put up a film showing off the game and the landscape of his native Svanøy, an island off the coast of Norway where he has his deer centre. If you're planning a Scandinavian holiday, it's pretty. Air rifle pest control rabbiting is exactly that, a sequence of good shots on rabbits by Vermin Basher Pest Control. In New Zealand, they shoot rabbits with shotguns over spaniels. Only one rabbit shot in this film by a channel called, appropriately, My Spaniels Hunting and Trialing in New Zealand. Another South African safari operation has discovered YouTube. This is Chasseurs d'Afrique's film of what it offers in the Eastern Cape, including caracal hunting with hounds and blue duiker stalking. The Northwoods Collective channel, which is a kind of American bird shooting or wing hunting lifestyle effort, is doing more and more on gun dogs. This is about English setters working in Italy. And finally, a superb short film of the recent Utah Merlin meet, where Merlin enthusiasts from across the USA come together to take on local starlings, among them Austin Gunter and his 2 Passage Merlins. That's it for this week. I've put all these films into a playlist for you. Click on the I symbol top right or check this film's description. If you have a YouTube film you would like us to pop into the weekly top 8, email me the link, charlie@fieldsportschannel.tv. Well, that's it for this week. If you haven't done so, please pop over to our website, fieldsportschannel.tv. You can click to like us there on Facebook and on Instagram. You can follow us on Twitter. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. And best of all, pop your email address into our register page. And we'll tell you about this show, Field Sports Britain, at 7 p.m. UK time every Wednesday. Plus, you can back us. Go to fieldsportschannel.tv/shares to find out about that. And I will see you next week. Good hunting, good shooting, good fishing, and goodbye.